So one of the core concepts of the course is just a proposition. What is a proposition? So here's a quick definition. A proposition is a simple statement that expresses a complete idea and can be true or false. So here's a non-proposition. That plant over there, that's not a proposition. I haven't actually made any claim. I've just said that plant over there. It's like picking out an item, right? So it hasn't really made any sort of claim yet. Here's an example of a proposition. My phone is ringing right now. That's true. It's made a claim about an object. It can be true or false. It's relatively simple. So a proposition is a sort of simple idea. And we'll get later into what I mean by simple. Later in the course, when we get into the logic section, you actually get a clearer sense of what is an atomic proposition versus a complex proposition. But a proposition is a claim that can be true or false. The reason why we use the word proposition instead of maybe sentence. So a sentence is a linguistic entity, right? Here's a sentence. You'll be able to hear it. Snow is white. Okay, there's a sentence. Here's another sentence. It's in German. Schnee ist weiß. Okay, so that's in German. I just said a sentence in English, a sentence in German. They actually share something because they mean the same thing, right? They mean virtually identical things. They mean snow is white. What they share is the proposition. They share the meaning. So the proposition is the meaning of the sentence. Propositions can be true or false. So they're sort of abstract entities. And you can do that with anything. You know, rabbits have fur, and then you can say it in, I guess Spanish would be something like conejos tienen pelo, or something like that. Right, and then so you've got a sentence in Spanish and a sentence in English. They both share the same meaning, right? And so the propositions are the things that we're really interested in. But when I say proposition, oftentimes you can just sort of think sentence. I was just talking about sentences, so sentences can be true or false. So I think that's a perfectly fine sort of shortcut to think. So whenever you see a claim and you can put in front of it, it is true that, or it is false that typically means that you're dealing with a proposition. And if you can't, then that typically means that you're not. It's true that plant over there. That doesn't make any sense, right? It's true that let's go to the water park today. That doesn't make any sense, right? It's true that we should go to the water park today. Now we're dealing with a proposition. It's got that should in there, so it feels a little weird and we're not quite sure what to do with it yet, but that's a proposition that can be true or false. It's true that rabbits have fur. It's false that Hillary Clinton is president, right? So that's just false. So these things can be true and false. Okay, propositions can be true and false. So if you can put it is true that, or it is false that, in front of it, and it still makes sense, you've got a proposition. So here are some examples. It's false that the GDP of the United States is $5, right? It's much bigger than that. It's in the trillions, I think. It's true that the sky is blue. It's true that freedom should be the highest value of the state for its citizens. It was a little confusing in the grammar there, but it's true that the state should value freedom over other things for its citizens. Well, I don't know. Is that true or is that false? Now we've gotten into a territory where we actually have to have a conversation and try and assess what the truth is, and it's not at all clear what the answer is. Right? It's important to note, especially when we get down to the logic part of the course, but even when we get into the argument mapping, which will come relatively quickly, it'll be sort of the second thing that we do after we get some of this introductory stuff taken care of, is that some sentences have multiple propositions in one sentence. So here's one. Marcos is taking 4 courses this semester and working in his parents' store 20 hours a week. So we've got one sentence, right? English grammar allows that to be one sentence, but it's actually multiple propositions. So a proposition, remember, is any like discrete, complete thought that can be true or false. So we've got that and in there, and the and is really what tells us that we're dealing with multiple propositions. So Marcos is taking 4 courses this semester. That's one claim that's being made. Marcos is taking 4 courses this semester, and Marcos is working in his parents' store 20 hours a week this semester, right? And so notice how the propositional content, like when you actually write it out in a complete sentence, doesn't always match on to exactly what's written here. You have to sort of import things. And that will become important later in the course. It's just something to be aware of now, that when we talk about propositions, we're not talking immediately about sentences, right? Sometimes we're talking about parts of sentences. And sometimes, notice how this semester and Marcos aren't in the second part here. But when we propositionalize it, when we write it out in a single proposition, we have to include Marcos and this semester, right? Frankie, Johnny, and Luigi went to dinner. This means, so this has an and, but there's actually an implied and between Frankie and Johnny, right? There's actually an implied and there, that comma. So we actually mean Frankie went to dinner, Johnny went to dinner, Luigi went to dinner. We mean 3 separate propositions, each of which could be true or false, independently of the other ones. Okay. Karen is smart but not very motivated to do well in school or to try and find a job that uses her talents. So we're dealing with a very complex proposition here. So this actually breaks down into Karen is smart, but Karen is not very motivated to do well in school. And then you've got this or, which kind of almost feels like an and in this case. And Karen is not very motivated to try and find a job that uses her talents. So we actually have 3 propositions here, and you notice how we have to take the Karen and import it, and we have to take the subject of the sentence and sort of put it into each proposition. So we really have to do some rewriting to get all the individual propositions taken out. And then there are some things called non-propositions, right? They're just not propositions. So my example earlier was that plant over there. That's not a proposition because it's not even a complete sentence, right? And if it's not a complete sentence, we know it's not a proposition. If it is a complete sentence, we still don't know it's a proposition. So here are some non-propositions that are actually complete sentences, right? Let's go get drinks. That's in the that's sort of in the exclamative mood or maybe the imperative mood. It's something like, we're going to do this right now. It almost feels like an order in some ways, right? It feels like, go get my dinner for me, or go do your homework. You know, something like that. Feels like in the imperative mood almost. Kind of like this. Go to the store later to buy me some cheese. I like cheese. Would you please stop that? Right, so it's kind of a question. It's actually an exhortation is the fancy word for that. What is the capital of the UAE? That's just a question in the sense that it's like a informative question. It's just, I need some information. Can you please tell me what's the capital of the UAE? Dubai. Propositions must make claims that are true or false. None of these make claims that can be true or false. You can't say, someone can say, what's the capital of the UAE? And you can't say, oh, that's false. You don't know what you're talking about. Just, I was asking a question. Like, it can't be false. I was just asking a question, right? Go to the store and buy me some cheese. No, that's wrong. Wait, that doesn't make any sense. I'm telling you I need you to do something for me. How could I possibly be false? How could that be a false claim? I'm not even making a claim. I'm just saying, go do this for me, please. So these things can't be true or false.